Hey everyone, this is Metalhead Nation 1021, and today I wanted to begin to delve into the CDs I've accumulated over the past 7 months or so. More specifically, however, a local record label within Virginia. I live in Northern Virginia, and there isn't a huge metal scene directly within like an hour of us. We have DC and Maryland that are decently close, and Richmond a couple hours away as well. But for the most part, there aren't a lot of shows to go to around here, and not a lot of music and fans in general. However, there are a few local bands, and within an hour's distance, there is a record label that's been putting out amazing albums since I believe 2007. Though I've only gotten into their discography recently, and that label is, if you can see it, there we go. Lost Apparition Records. So, my local record store, which doesn't just sell metal, obviously to stay afloat around here, it has to sell all types of different music, has a lot of these in stock, and it wasn't until I went down on a trip to Vienna, to the Vienna Music Exchange, that I talked to one of the workers, or one of the owners there, and she told me that this label is located in Luray, Virginia, which is less than an hour away from where I live. And so I got extremely interested and realized I already had a few releases from this label. So while I was at the record store, I picked up some more. And ever since then, I've been picking up a few albums from my local record store. When I see the name Lost Apparition Records on the back, I know it's going to be a good release. And so I wanted to talk about the ones that I've accumulated so far. I plan on getting many more. I believe they've had over 70 releases at this point in less than 15 years. Which is really impressive, and for such a new label as well. So I have 1, 4, 5, 6. I have 8 albums here that I want to show to you guys today. These are the 8 that I own at the moment. Hopefully, I can accumulate at least half of their discography within the next few years. And they also have an awesome online store. Go check out Lost Apparitions' website. And anyways, I'm gonna start with the one band I have that has 2 releases on this label, and that band is Abominog. The first release is this is Dark Museum right here, and then this one is Manifesting Void. I believe the same artist did the art for both of these, and I believe he's a local artist here as well, which is even cooler. And I've actually been able to meet him before, just by complete and total coincidence, and that was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had as like a metalhead. And it's been so cool being able to like learn about more of the projects he's worked with. But anyways, this is old school death metal. I believe that one of, if not both of these, I believe that this one right here, Dark Museum, Manifesting Void, is all old tracks, and I also believe this one might be as well. I'm not entirely sure, and I know that they have a really, I don't want to say odd, but a very interesting take on old school death metal, where they use a lot of odd drum beats and odd riffs, but are able to make it heavy in a way that's extremely difficult, and I've never seen done before like this. The artwork is amazing as well. The music is amazing. It's some premium old school death metal. Definitely something that I would check out. And these are, I believe, the 2 most recent releases, and I believe both of them actually might be compilations. And I've heard that they might be releasing some new music in the near future, in the next couple of years, or maybe even closer. But that's Abominog, and I have Manifesting Void and Dark Museum. Awesome albums, and I definitely recommend checking those 2 out. Next up, one of the first albums I got by this label, actually, the band Criminal Element. I've heard a lot of great things about this band. I know they had a huge release back in the mid to late 2000s, I believe, where they worked with some of the members of Suffocation, particularly Terrence Hobbs, and I believe the bass player, I can't remember his name. And that release was amazing. That was a full length. This album right here technically is also a full length. By the way, this album's called Never Dead. This album in particular is a covers album. And what's interesting about it is that it's not covering like a lot of death metal songs. though it does lean. It is the style of death metal, particularly brutal death metal with like a little bit of a technical edge, similar to Suffocation. Um, but all the songs on here are covers of more traditional heavy metal bands, and their takes on a lot of these songs, like if I can find it, Motor Breath, I believe it's by Metallica on Kill 'Em All, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. But it's an extremely interesting take on a popular song that is done in a way that makes it seem original. Like, if I didn't know the original material, this all right here would fit into like this album. It doesn't. It is diverse, but it doesn't sound like they ever walk too far off of the beaten path. And I really recommend this release, and also another amazing artwork. I'm not sure who did this. This might also be the person who did the Abominog artwork, but I'm not entirely sure. Actually, no, now that I read it, it is not. But still, an amazing album. And next up, this is a band I knew of previously to knowing the label, one of the few, actually. And I knew a lot of information about them. I believe that they left the label at some point, and maybe, I don't think it was Unique Leader, but it was a larger label that caters more to the brutal death metal, brutal deathcore, and like slam side. And this band is Cognitive from New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. These guys are awesome. They play a technical-ish style of like slam / deathcore, I want to say. This release definitely leans more towards the traditional brutal death metal side. And this release, by the way, is called The Horde Swarm. I know it's one of their much earlier releases, and I believe it is the only release they ever had on Lost Apparition, but I may be mistaken on that. This album in particular, actually I take that back, it's an EP. It's 5 songs, and it's the production's amazing, the songwriting is amazing, and the songs also have that technical edge I was talking about, and they stay short and to the point, which really works for this band. And so the EP, I believe, is less than 25 minutes, if not shorter than that, but I might be mistaken on that as well. This is probably the one I've spun more than any other one, and amazing album. Next, there's this band, Eye of the Destroyer, and I don't remember the name of this one. Starved and Hanging is what it's called. This is a very unique release on their label because it caters less to traditional death metal or even deathcore and leads more towards like a hardcore-ish slam type sound. If I had to choose a sound that they have that they're closest to. It's another EP, I believe, extremely short. I think this one's even shorter, like 15 minutes or something. It's just like straight edge hardcore, like punch in the face. The production's amazing and the songwriting is heavy, brutal. Definitely recommend checking that one out as well. That one I picked up off of the logo alone, and the fact that it was a Lost Apparition release. That's how much faith I have in this label, and it's an amazing release. I would recommend checking that out. 3 more left. Earlier I mentioned the band Abominog. If I'm not mistaken, I've been told that some of the members of that band have also worked with this project right here, Inhuman Ontogenesis. It's like, the album, sorry. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. The band is called Inhumation, and the album is called Ontogenesis, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And this album right here is probably second behind Cognitive of the one that I've spun the most. This album definitely strays quite far from the Abominog sound, where it leans more on a brutal death metal with a little bit of a technical edge to it instead of traditional old school death metal. And that, for people that don't usually enjoy that style, it's still a release that I can recommend because it definitely does have a lot of aspects of like the Swedish and American early old school metal scenes, but it's kicked up another notch really, and it's almost a mesh between like 40% old school death metal and then 60% modern / mid 2000s to now brutal death metal, and it really works. And there's a few sections in there with some technical edge to it, and I absolutely love this album, and I couldn't recommend it enough. So I would definitely recommend checking out this album. Coming up close to the end, we have Thorn of Bodis, if I'm pronouncing that right, and Hymns of Homicide is the name of the album. This one, I saw the logo immediately and knew that it was like a brutal death metal styling. The inside artwork gives it away right away. Um, and the band picture, everyone's wearing some slam or brutal death metal related shirt. This definitely is the most traditional brutal death metal album that I have from the label, and maybe the most traditional they've ever put out. I know that the band hasn't released something since then, I believe, but I also believe this is like a 2017 release of 2016. I haven't seen any new material from them. I believe they're still on the label, however, and I believe they're still active. This is another short album with another one that's 5 tracks, and I'm very well versed in the brutal death metal and slam scene, if I say so myself. And this is an album I actually hadn't run across before I picked it up and before I found it. And I took a chance with it again because the label, I have that much trust in Lost Apparition, and it paid off because the album hits hard. The production, I don't want to say it's light, but it's not bass heavy, so and that doesn't take away from the album, I should say, because it has a pretty unique sound, and the guitars and drums are still able to cut through the mix, but the bass isn't drowning it out or anything. It's very, very clean, I should say, and I like that a lot on this release in particular. The final release that I have, and this one is another one that I just picked off of impulse from the label, not knowing what genre or what genre or like styling this album was, and that is Gutted Christ, and then the album is called the Sower of Discord. This is blackened death metal. I believe they're from Southern California, but I might be wrong about that. This album is just brutal, very hard-hitting, very old-school death metalish with like a black metal tinge, I guess you could say. Death metal, and it works in its favor because the production is great. Everything cuts through the mix, and it has the punch that you'd expect from old-school death metal and brutal death metal, but it has riff structuring and like drum structuring as well that is commonly found in black metal, mixed in with the elements that are adapted from death metal. And this album in particular I haven't listened to very much yet, and it's something that I want to listen to more in the future, because the few songs I have listened to were very high quality, and it's definitely an album that I see myself returning to once I get the full experience. And that's the final release that I have at the moment from Lost Apparition Records. Amazing label again. Support the label. I'd love to pick up so many more of their releases. I've kept up with what they've done recently and have listened to some of the music, and I'd love to get it on CD or vinyl, though I believe it's a little harder to obtain. And it's just a label that is very diverse with the genres and styles of metal that it signs, but always keeps a high and consistent level of quality that, for me, is hard to match with a lot of other labels. I definitely check out every single release I talked about here, and if I had to pick one that was my favorite, it would probably be Inhumation, just because it's a band that I hadn't heard about before, and that blew me away, and I wonder why they're not larger, and because their playing is amazing, and their songwriting is extremely solid. So if I had to recommend any particular one for you guys to check out, it'd definitely be Inhumation with Ontogenesis. It's just one of the best underground brutal death metal releases that I've heard within the last 5 to 10 years. And that one is probably going to be the top of my recommended for a while. Anyways, check out the website where they sell both their own music and other titles from other labels. And definitely check out these particular bands. And Tell me what you guys think of these releases and other releases from the label. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on it, and I'd love to know if anybody else has like heard of this label consistently before and has experienced the same thing as I have with the consistent quality of their releases. Other than that, I don't have much else to say. Just check out the label, and I'll probably do a update on this video once I get a few more albums from Lost Apparition. And I don't believe I forgot any that were in my collection. I skimmed the spines and checked the backs of some of my albums. Hopefully I got everything in this video. But yeah, anyways, thank you for watching. This is Metalhead Nation 1021, and don't forget to check out Lost Apparition Records. See you next time.